it's always he in the old translation of the Tao Te Ching, but in this Stephen Mitchell translation, he shifts continuously from he to she. It happens to be he here, but it doesn't matter. The master views the parts with compassion because he understands the whole. He understands the whole, he's connected with the whole. Then you can look upon the parts, the individual human beings, and the many different life forms with compassion because you recognize them as expressions of, manifestations of the one life that you also are. Manifestations or expressions of the one consciousness that is the essence also of who you are. And you see it, you feel, when you don't continuously impose thoughts on reality, but allow things to be, allow a flower to be, with that spaciousness, spacious perception. Oh, a moment, another human being. That's compassion comes out of that state. And compassion has a deeper level to it, and that is the recognition of oneness. Out of that comes true compassion, the recognition that in essence you and I share a common source and consciousness, not a source in the distant past, a source, we share a common source now. And that's not an intellectual thing. The realization comes the less you impose thoughts on other people, judgments, definitions, and on yourself. You start thinking about my life. What about my life? And then you define your life as either good or bad, fulfilling or unfulfilling, satisfying or unsatisfying. And you have all kinds of opinions about me and my life. And you have a whole structure in your mind develops that you call my life. And for many people, that mental consists of thoughts, all clinging together. This is all part of the edifice of my life. And it's here. And they all cling together, and people think that's who they are. It's just thoughts about, it's definitions about them. They're just thoughts. And when you don't know that cuts you off from who you are, the power that is there underneath all that. The power of consciousness itself, the Tao. You're cut off and you live as if that thing were real, and you try to somehow make it better on the level of the thought structure of my life, or try to convince yourself that, oh, my life isn't that bad after all. And then you get a little bit of, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better today because I just had the thought that my life isn't so bad after all. Or you see somebody who is in suffering say, oh, I'm better off than that person, and you have a little bit of happiness. My life isn't so bad. Many people's lives are far worse than my life. Okay, I should feel good. Okay, a little bit of feeling a little bit good for a few moments. But the structure of my life is not a satisfying one for almost anybody. If you don't go beyond that structure, you might think the people you read about in People magazine or wherever are better off. They're just as unhappy as everybody else, because unless they've gone deeper. Some may have. My life, it's a figment of the imagination. There's no such thing as my life. I don't have a life. How can I have? What does that mean, I have a life? I am life. I am an expression of the one life, the one consciousness, the Tao, expressing itself briefly through this form. And the very power of all life is here. Why have some mental structure that gives me a sense of identity, that tells me who I am with definitions and judgments and not good enough or better than, all unnecessary, as sometimes called in the Tao Te Ching, unnecessary baggage. Walking around with unnecessary baggage. Oh, my life is so heavy and it's hard. I have a hard life. Where's your hard life at this moment? Can't see it. It's only when I start to think about it, oh, it's back, oh yeah. But where is it ever now? It's an imaginary entity. The me that is up there, consisting of all kinds of thoughts and opinions, is an imaginary entity, unreal. And it's wonderful to treat it. In this moment, you don't have that baggage of my life. You are life right now. I am. I don't need to define myself mentally as either good or bad or better than or success or failure. All that cuts you off from the power that's actually there of the Tao. So this is why it says, as we read earlier, empty yourself of everything, it said, which means empty yourself of these ideas that otherwise dominate you, the ideas of who you are. Jesus said the same thing. Almost literally to me, it means exactly the same. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Poor in spirit, that means inside you do not carry baggage. The baggage of your thoughts of who you are. So the same thing, blessed are the poor in spirit, means you are internally unencumbered by heavy thinking and identification and creating an image of who you think you are that becomes my life. And then you even believe that you could lose your life. I'm going to lose, he lost his life. He must have been separate from life. Who was he if not life? Without life, he isn't. He couldn't have been. You cannot be, you are life. You can't separate yourself from life and say, I have a life. Who are you then? Separate from life? What is it other than life? Well, that's life. But you don't have it, you are it. Only the mind tells you that you have it. Insane. But normal. Normal and insane. One more. He who stands on tiptoe doesn't stand firm. He who rushes ahead doesn't go far. He who tries to shine dims his own light. He who defines himself can't know who he really is. He who has power over others can't empower himself. He who clings to his work will create nothing that endures. If you want to accord with the Tao, just do your job, then let go. He who stands on tiptoe doesn't stand firm. Look at me. Me, my life. Unhappy, or look how miserable I am. Look how great I am. He who rushes ahead doesn't go far, always looking to the next thing. What do I have to do now? Always grasping for the next, what's the next thought that I need to worry about? And the next thing, rushes, entire civilization stressed out, all disconnected from the Tao. They're all rushing ahead. No time for anything else. No time. He who rushes ahead doesn't go far. You don't really reach anywhere. He who tries to shine dims his own light. By trying to play roles or identifying with yourself as special, look at me, you cut yourself off from the power of the Tao. It's by not directing attention to yourself, the power comes through you. Not identifying with anything that you do, because you don't do it. If it's a pity in a way that I wish sometimes, it's a little joke, I wish I had written The Power of Now when I still had a big ego, because now the ego would feel so great. Me. But then, of course, The Power of Now couldn't have come through the ego. So and here, important, he who defines himself can't know who he really is. This is what we were talking about, these constant definitions of who you are in your mind. Why not just be the consciousness, be the presence right now? That's where the power is. What a wonderful teaching, timeless. It helps, of course, to have a translation that makes it more accessible by somebody who is deeply in tune with that state of consciousness. Traditionally, the Tao Te Ching has been always translated by academics who had a wonderful knowledge and command of ancient Chinese, but absolutely no idea of the spiritual dimension. The Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, stillness. We started with it, we end with it, a moment of stillness.